ॐ भद्रं कर्णेभिः शृणुयाम देवाः भद्रं पश्येम अक्षभिः यजत्राः स्थिरैरङ्गैर्तुष्टुवांसस्तनूभिः व्यशेम देवहितं यदायुः स्वस्ति नः इन्द्रो वृद्धश्रवाः स्वस्ति नः पूषा विश्ववेदाः स्वस्ति नः तार्क्ष्यो अरिष्टनेमिः स्वस्ति नो बृहस्पतिर्ददातु ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः यो अन्तः प्रविश्य मम वाच इमां प्रसुप्तां सञ्जीवयति अखिलशक्तिधरस्वधाम्ना अन्यांश्च हस्तचरणश्रवणत्वगादीन् प्राणान् नमो भगवते पुरुषाय तुभ्यं लसतु श्रीमदानन्दतीर्थेन्दुर्नो हृदम्बरे यद्वचश्चन्द्रिका स्वान्तसन्तापं विनिकृन्तति पदवाक्यप्रमाणज्ञान् प्रणम्य शिरसा गुरून् व्याकरिष्ये यथाबोधं विष्णुतत्त्वविनिर्णयम्. So good morning everyone, good evening, good afternoon. Thanks for joining for the 41st session of Mundaka Upanishad. So where are we? So we are in the Tritiya Mundake Pratama Khandaha. Okay, so let's think about our rishis, Devata and Chandas. Rishi Atharva, Angirasa, Atharva, Angira, Satyavaha, Angirasa, and Shuanaka, and all the acharyas. Let's not forget them. Without them imparting the knowledge and the correct way of understanding these Upanishads, we will be nowhere. Okay, so those are the rishis and all the acharyas who have given us the bhashya. The Devata is Aksharanamaka Paramatma. The Chandas for this Upanishad is Anushtup and many others. Yeah. So we are in the Tritiya Mundake, Pratama Kandaha, and there are 10 verses in this particular section. There are 10 verses for the Pratama Kandaha of the Tritiya Mundake. Okay, we are doing the first verse. So let's think about the first verse. Dva Suparna Sayuja Sakaya Samana Vriksham Parishashva Jate Tayor Anyaha Pippalam Swadvatti Anashnan Anyo Abhichaka Shiti. So this is the verse that we are looking at. So this particular verse, as we discussed in last session, is no ordinary verse of the Vedas. In fact, of course, there is nothing called ordinary verse of the Vedas. Every verse, every sound of the Vedas is divine, and it gives us the knowledge of the Paramatma. Okay? But there are certain verses within the Vedas that have been given great importance in the Sanatana Dharma. And one of those verses is this particular verse. Dva Suparna Sayuja Sakaya Samana Vriksham Parishashva Jate Tayor Anyaha Pippalam Swadvatti Anashnan Anyaha Abhichakashiti. It comes in Mundaka Upanishad, which is part of the Atharva Veda. The same verse comes in Shvetashvatara Upanishad, which is part of the Krishna Yajurveda. The same mantra comes in Rig Veda first mandala, and the rishi for that is Dirghatamas. The rishi for Shvetashvatara Upanishad is Shvetashvatara rishi. The rishi for Mundaka Upanishad, as we know, is Angirasa, and all the rishis that we have just thought about. And in Srimad Bhagavatam, 11th canto, 11th chapter, verse 6 is also talking about the Dva Suparna. And of course, the seer of that is Narayana himself, which is Veda Vyasa. So we got 4 areas from which the same philosophy is being discussed by the Upanishads. So that again gives you a clear indication that this is a pretty important verse of the Vedas, Upanishads. Something foundational is being discussed here. So this is the foundational philosophy is being discussed here. Foundational philosophy of the Veda is being discussed here is what we need to first understand, that this is an important verse. So anybody wants to memorize this, please go ahead, because the more we memorize these 10 verses of this Mundaka, Pratama Kandaha, the more we understand the basics of Vedic philosophy. Okay? So that is the importance of this. So what is this verse primarily talking about? It is talking about the Antaryamin philosophy, right? In fact, Angirasa in the Pratama Kandaha, in the previous Mundake, Dvitiya Kandaha, he spent the whole section talking about Antaryamin. So we are the jivas. Inside us is the Antaryaman, is the constant reminder that Angirasa is giving to us in this Upanishad. Particularly when he says this, Dva Suparna, two birds. What are those two birds? Where are they? These two birds are in this vriksha. What is this vriksha? This vriksha is this pindanda. And what is this parishashva jate? They are in the nest of this tree. This tree is this pindanda. What is that nest? That nest is the guha. And in the guha are the two birds. What are they? There are the suparnas, Dva Suparna. Those are the two suparnas that are there. Okay. Where are they? Samanam Vriksham, in the same tree. Nested together in the same tree. In this Pindada are two birds. Okay. So the word there last week, you may remember, we spent quite a lot of time thinking about this. Why does the Veda initially gives a dual in the form of Suparnau? So as we understood in Vedic grammar, in Sanskrit grammar, there is the singular, there is the dual, and there is the plural. Whereas in a language like English, there is only singular and plural. And when you bring plural, you have to qualify it. Okay, so you can say persons or you can say two persons. When I say two persons, then I qualify that. Okay. Whereas in Sanskrit, you just say purushau. That means dual. Okay. But here the beauty of this particular verse is there is a dwa before the suparnau. Dvau suparnau. So we understood from that dvau there means paraspara binna. There are two birds that are different from each other. They belong to entirely two different categories. There are two birds and they are always together. Sayuja, Sakaya, they are friends. We understood that they're always together. They're indiscardable from each other. And they are Sakaya, they are always as friends. And last week we looked at so many verses in the Gita, 3 verses at least, where Krishna says, Arjuna, you are my friend. And then Arjuna says, Krishna, you are my friend. Please forgive me. So those kind of beautiful verses of the Gita directly links up with this verse in Mundaka Upanishad, where Angirasa has intuited this relationship between the two Suparnas as Sakaya. Samana Vriksham Parishashve Jate. Okay. So that Dva Suparna becomes interesting. And as I told, this is the Antaryamin philosophy that is being discussed here. And it is never, it is so important for us to think about this Antaryamin philosophy that I think given any opportunity, we should always think about what are the other Upanishads telling us about this. Yeah. And we have spoken about this Antaryami Brahmanam or the Brihadaranyaka Upanishad. Okay. So if you go to Brihadaranyaka Upanishad, there are two different recensions of this. There is a Kanva recension and there is a Madhyandina recension of Brihadaranyaka Upanishad. So if you look at the Kanva recension of Brihadaranyaka Upanishad that talks about Antaryami Brahmanam, it says, E sarveshu bhuteshu tishtan sarvebhyo bhutebhyo antaro ya sarvani bhutani na viduhu asya sarvani bhutani shariram yah sarvani bhutani antaro yamayati eshata atma antaryami amrutaha. Okay. And if you look at the Madhyandina recension, the Bhuteshu there becomes Atmani. Yeah. Ya Atmani Tishtan Atmanam Antaro Yamayati Eshate Atma Antaryami. So that is the Madhyandina recension of Brihadaranyaka Upanishad, where it talks about two things. There is the Atma and there is the Antaratma. This Atma fellow does not know this Antaryatma. Okay, that is very, very clear from the Brihadaranyaka Upanishad. When you look at both recensions, Bhuta also means Jivas. Yeah, Bhuta, that which has the ability to grow. Yeah, that is called Bhuta. Yeah, that which has Unnati, that which has the ability to Bhuti. So that is called Bhuta, which is the Jivas. And the same Jiva is also discussed as Atma here in this context and Antaryamin. Okay, so Atma and Antaratma are two distinct entities. Dva Suparna says Mundaka Upanishad. And we need to understand this idea that they are not, it is not a substratum and a superimposition relationship as some folks make it to be. Okay. There is the Atma, and inside the Atma is the Antaratma that has pervaded. Okay. Look at this Mundaka Upanishad in the previous kanda. Ataha Samudrad Giriyashta Sarve Asmad Sandante Sindavaha Sarvarupaha Atashta Sarva Oshadayo Rasashta Yena Esha Bhutaihi. Tishtate hi antaratma. Okay. So Bhuta Antaratma, Bhuta Antaratma, it's everywhere. The Samanvaya of the Shastra is 100%. Yeah, it is only our problem that we don't understand it. So Atma, and that one that has pervaded into the Atma is called Antaratma. And as I've told, as we have discussed before, there is the house, and inside the house I enter. So just because I enter inside the house, I do not become the house. The house is there, I am there. Atma is there, Paramatma is there. So that is the clear views of the Upanishad. Atma means master. Antara means separate. Yamayati, governor. Antara, antar, independent. Yamin, one who governs. Amrutaha, the eternal, the deathless. This is the meaning of this Kanva and Madhyandina recension, which clearly talk to us about that relationship between Atma and Antaratma. Dva, Suparna. And the very first word, Dva and Suparna, as I said, they talks about two different types of sentient beings. And what is the proof for that? The proof for that is the next line. One bird, Tayor Anyaha, Pippalam Swadatti. Anashnan Anyaha Abhichakashiti. So it has clearly defined who are these two different types of birds. One that is eating the fruit, one that is just observing this bird eating the fruit. But it itself is full of light and knowledge. It's the second bird. That is what the Upanishad, the Veda itself has given us a clarification as to why this Apaurushya Veda has said Dva Suparna rather than just, it could have just started as Suparnau, Sayujau, Sakayau, Samanam, Vriksham. No, it said Dvau Suparnau. So I think we have to hold on to that idea very clearly and nail it into our consciousness. Yeah, there is no other way of understanding this verse. This is called Niravakasha Shruti. There are two types of Shrutis in the Vedas. They are called Niravakasha and Savakasha Shruti. That we will kind of understand as we go along navigating the slides in this particular Khanda. Okay, so this Tayor Anyaha Pippalam Swadati. So this Pippala we understood last week. Pippalam, Karma Palam. Yeah, that is what is the meaning. Pippala means karma pala. Some folks like you and me in this samsara think that this karma pala, because of this karma pala, we are in this samsara, we are eating all these fruits, which is our karma that we have done in the previous lives. And we think that this is very, very tasty. Swaduatti. But actually it is not. He who thinks that it is tasty will be stuck in samsara. Whereas he who thinks, this is not what I want something different, he then follows the path of the Shreyas. Okay, so that is important, that Pippalam, understanding that Pippalam as Karma Palam, this karma which is an imprint on the Linga Sharira, and that is what dictates the kind of births that we have in our future lives, and we go through these eternal cycles. Yeah, this samsara is nothing but the inaction of our karmic imprints on our Linga Sharira. And this karmic imprints is what we incur when we have a sadhana sharira like a human sharira. And this happens from year 14 to year 80. Okay? And that is very, very clear from our Shastras. The first 14 years of life, no matter what you do, you don't incur any karmic imprints. It is only when the mental faculties are matured enough, and the Vedic rishis or the Vedas has intuited that for a human, it is around the 14th year of life that the mental faculties of discrimination is a bit more matured. That is when the karmic imprint starts coming, and up to 80 is what the Shastras tell us. And here is another key point that we are all familiar with. In everybody, it at least takes 10 future births for an individual to work out the amount of karma accumulated by him or her from the 14th year of life. So imagine how much karmic imprints we have incurred on our Linga Sharira. Incredible amount. Yeah. When are we going to finish this? This karma phalam, we are kind of satisfying this. And when are we going to finish it off? It's a big problem of philosophy. Suparnau yetau sadrushau sakayau yadrucha yetau krutanidhau cha vrikshe ekastayo khadati pippala annam anyo niranno api bhalena bhuyan is exactly the same as the Mundaka Upanishad. Okay, so I was actually looking at phalam. Okay? And how many times is our Krishna talking about phalam in Bhagavad Gita? And if you do that research, it's really interesting. Krishna talks about phalam in so many places. Yeah. Phalam, he says. Karma phalam, karma phalam is what Krishna constantly teaching the Jiva, which is the Arjuna in Bhagavad Gita. Okay. So phalam comes in 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12 area, 12 different verses of Bhagavad Gita, the word phalam comes. Karma phalam, he has used it in 2, 15, 12, and 6, 1. So look at those verses. Let's at least recite 1 or 2 verses. Can I call upon one of us to take 251 and we will take 1 5 20, 5 12. So who wants to go for 251, please? Maybe Neetaji would want to start and we can get another colleague of us to do the 512.
कर्मजं बुद्धियुक्ता हि फलं त्यक्त्वा मनीषिणः जन्मबन्धविनिर्मुक्ताः पदं गच्छन्त्यनामयम्.
Thank you very much. Anybody wants to go for 512? Or shall I just pick one of us? Suresh ji, do you want to go for 512? No worries. Oh, okay, Suresh.
युक्त कर्म फलं त्यक्त्वा शान्तिमाप्नोति नैष्टिकीम् अयुक्त कामकारेण फले सक्तो निबध्यते.
Pratibha ji, thank you very much. So I just picked up these verses and look at phalam of Gita. And we all know that Gita is the essence of the Upanishads, right? There is nothing outside the Upanishads that Krishna wants to teach us in Bhagavad Gita. Or Veda Vyasa want to document what Krishna has taught to Arjuna. Okay, so you will see these kind of similarities, which I thought was interesting, and I've given you a reference for all the phalams that are used in Bhagavad Gita. So the karmic imprints that is happening to the tayor anyaha piphalam swadati, that karmic imprints are on the subtle body of the linga sharira that we have discussed. Here is a very brief review of what these karmic imprints are, and many of us will be very familiar with these various terms that are used in our philosophies or in our scriptures. Sanchita karma, total karmas accumulated in the past lives. Kriyamana karma, these are the karmas that are coming into fruition in this birth. Prarabdha karma, this one, the ones that you have to there is no way around it. It is like an arrow that has been released and it has to be brought into fusion and we have to suffer or enjoy it. Handful of sanchit karma that has come to fruition in this lifetime. Okay, and here is an important note. Supreme takes note that thoughts in our minds only. We do not get any results of action performed in our dreams or our physical actions. Involuntarily, we may be moving some hands and legs. That does not get any karmic imprints. We might be dreaming and we may be doing good things or nasty things. For that also, we don't get karmic imprints. We get karmic imprints only when intentionally through our mind we do some work. Okay, think about that idea. That's why Krishna says mind is very important for your progress because that is what dictates. Yeah, mana eva manushyanam karanam bandha moksha yoho, that we know. This from these kind of philosophies. Then of course there is a nitya karma, naimittika karma, kamya karma, prayashtita karma, vikarma, karma yoga, karma sannyasa. Those are all the terms that come from those basic concepts that you will be very familiar with. Okay. And then, of course, there is karma in other darshanas. We should never forget when we're talking about Sanatana Dharma, we should always do some comparative studies. Then you understand what are the different views, and then you can make up your own decision with regards to what is your view and how you want to follow your life. Here is a view from Jainism, which is a Nastika school of philosophy. Karma is material and it is real. Okay. Look at Sankhya Yoga, Nyaya, Vaisheshika. Those are all in the Shad Darshanas of our Shastras. Sankhya, Yoga, Nyaya, and Vaisheshika. They also accept karma, but it is real. It really exists. There are only 2 schools out there that have a different view of karma. One is from the Buddhist school, which is, as you know, is a Nastika. And their karma is called kamma. Right? Karma is actually in Buddhist philosophy is called kamma. It is unreal. It is unreal. That is a key point. It actually does not have its own reality. Okay? And there is no jiva in Buddhist philosophy. And as such, all that exists is shunya. Brahman is not in the equation of Buddhist philosophy. And there is nothing called the jiva. Okay? The consciousness is it is a very materialistic kind of view. The consciousness is the mixture of the five skandhas, as it's called. Okay? And the karma is unreal, which is called kamma. Then you have a Mayavada, which is an offshoot of Buddhist philosophy. There also karma is mithya. It's non-real. Unreal and non-real are synonymous. Jivas do not really exist and they are non-doers. Okay, so these are all key ideas that we should never forget. That, for example, in the Mayavada schools, Jiva is a non-doer. Jiva actually does not exist. They have equated Jiva with Brahman. And then this karma is there. That karma is also an unreal mithya entity. And where it is, who has it, only God knows. But that is the view, and these are the comparative views of various concepts of karma that we need to understand before we try and decide what appeals to us and we make that journey. Okay, so hope this summary slide of karma is helpful. So let's progress into the next verse. So this is the verse for today. So Dva Suparna Sayuja Sakaya Samana Vriksham Parishashvajate Tayor Anyaha Pippalam Swadati. Who's the other bird? Anashnan Anyaha Abhichakashi. Okay. Anashna means what? Not eats. Ashna means that which eats. That ashna here is called atti, swadu atti. Atti is ashna. Atti means you eat. It is also called ashnan in Sanskrit. And of course, the Upanishad here says there is the other bird, which is anashnan. Anashnan anyaha. There is a different bird who is anashnan, who does not eat. What does he not eat? He does not eat karma palas. Okay? Here is a question for us to think about and contribute for today's discussion is why? Why is this other bird, who is this, who we think is the Paramatma? We have currently understood that this bird here is the Paramatma. And the Veda has said, Anashnan Anyaha, this Brahman, this Antaratma is Anashnan. He doesn't eat. He doesn't eat karma phala. So here is my question for us to think about, because we are doing a lot of Gita Chintana, right? So let's think of why is it? If God is the independent doer of everything, why no karma gets attached to him? So who wants to take this up? Let's think about this for the next few minutes to say why God does not incur karmic imprints when he is the supreme independent doer of everything. We are also doing, and for what we do, we get karmic imprints. But Paramatma is Sarvakarta. He is the creator of the universe itself, but he does not get any karmic imprints. What is the reason behind it? So who wants to take this up?
Madhuji, Suresh.
Madhuji.
Yeah, let's do Suresh and then come to Pratibhaji next. Sureshji.
He is beyond Gunatita, the material gunas. So there's no way karmic imprints are going to influence him.
Thank you, Sureshji. But he is non-material. Maybe he might have some non-material karmic imprints in his body. Is that possible?
But he is complete, right? There's nothing that can be attached to him or nothing that can be deleted from him. There's no scope for him to want something or not want something. So therefore, he's complete in itself. So the very idea of something inflicts him or attaches him doesn't make sense in a way.
Thank you, Sureshji. Pratibhaji?
Yeah, I was about to tell the same thing. And you have karma only when you have desires. So the Lord is beyond the desires. And he is saprakrita sharira, as you have said.
Beautiful. Thank you very much, Sureshji and Pratibhaji. Excellent.
I thought you have already put it in the picture, Madhu. Akayam doesn't have a linga sharira. Only the sentient being will. Yeah, he is sentient, but he doesn't. If he doesn't have linga sharira, then where will he get the karmic imprints? I thought linga sharira gets karmic imprints. From all our classes.
Beautiful, Shilaji. Thank you very much. I can't agree with you more. Completely agree with all the views that have been expressed by Sureshji, Pratibhaji, and Shilaji. Yes. So in Mundaka Upanishad itself, Angirasa has said, this guy is Sadasad Varenyam. He's beyond manifested and unmanifested universe. He is beyond the Panchabhuta. Sadasad there means sad means that which is which is manifested, which is the fire, water, and earth. Whereas the asad is that we cannot see, which is the air and the space. Okay, so he is Varenyam. He is beyond these two. He is beyond Panchabhutas. Okay. Nishkalam, you and me have got this 15 fences that we have discussed a number of times, whereas this guy is Nishkalam. And as Shilaji mentioned, he is Akayam, which is again is a verse from Katha Upanishad. Okay. Akayam. Yeah, he does not have Kaya. Kaya means it is body. What body? Linga Deha. Linga Varjanat. Varaha Purana. Yeah. And then Nishkalam, Virajam. Virajam has been said in Mundaka Upanishad as well. So that is an easy answer there. He is Tamasaha Parastat. He is beyond the Tamas. So it has said all this. This guy does not have a material body, Linga Sharira, as all three of us very beautifully said. Because he doesn't have a Linga Sharira, where is the question of some karmic imprints on that? So that is the first one. That is the first reason why he does not have any karmic imprints. He does not have to eat any karma palas. The second one in Gita, of course, 4:14. I've just picked up two verses. The whole of first Shatka is talking about this. 4:14 and 9:9 gives us an idea about why Krishna, who is the Antaryamin, who is the Vishnu, who is the Paramatma that is being discussed here, does not have karmic influence. So who wants to take up 4:14, recite it for us and give us some ideas about what is Krishna saying in that verse, please? Who wants to go for it? Neetaji? Or Suresh or Ajit, anybody wants to take on that, recite that and give us an idea? Okay, so I'll go for it. Namam karmani limpanti, name karma phalas pruhai, iti mam yo abhijananti karma bir nasabadhyate. He said, for me, there is no karmic impulse. I don't have to read the karma phala. He who knows me like this, like what? That I am aprakrita, I don't have material body, I am eternal, I'm eternally liberated, and so on and so forth. He who meditates on me, then will attain that kind of situation. Okay. Nachamam tani karmani nibadnanti dhananjaya udasinadavat asinam asaktam teshu karmasu. Okay. So look at, I was also looking at, we should also look other world religions. What do they talk about? So when I say namam karmani limpanti name karma phale spruha itimam yo abhijananti karma bivir nasabhadyate. So he who operates like me will reach me. Matthew 5:48. But you must always act like your Father in heaven. I thought that verse in Matthew 5:48 was very interesting, talking about exactly the karmas. And of course, the Catholic philosophy does not overtly take on, at least the modern versions do not take up karma as a concept. But when you look at Matthew, that is what it is saying. But you must always act like your Father in heaven, 4:14. Okay. Here is another reason, third reason. Karma itself is under his control. Karma is, they are all eternal entities, right? Srimad Bhagavatam 2:10-12. We know this is very, very important verse. Dravyam karmashcha kalashcha swabhavo jiva evacha yad anugrahatah santi nasanti yadupekshaya. The first line talks about all the eternal entities like Dravyam, Karma, Kala, Swabhava, Jiva. They are all eternal entities. And these guys are actually under his control. Okay. When it is under his control, he is not going to become a baddha to that. Okay, so think about that verse in Srimad Bhagavatam. So yes, no linga sharira, and his actions are on a different plane, and that he is actually the controller of karmas, which is a padartha, which is a positive entity in many philosophies. Yeah, and of course, as Sureshji very beautifully mentioned, whatever he is desireless, he is aptakama, which was Pratibhaji mentioned about aptakama. He has no desires. It's only the desires that cause karma, but he is desireless. He is aptakama, and his action has got no desires. Na prayojanavatvat. Brahma Sutra. Vaishamya naigrinye nasapaikshatva tatahi darshayati. Two verses that talk about this concept of Brahman who does spontaneously act. Okay. And he is Aptakama. There is no prayojana for him. It is only out of his immense mercy that he creates and brings these jivas into creation so that they can work out their salvation and reach him. That is why the creation has happened, says the Vedas. So in this verse, the verse seems to imply Anashnan Anyaha Abhichakashiti, that Paramatma is not an enjoyer of our activities. This bird is doing all sorts of stuff as a Pippalam Swaduvatti. He is doing this. The other bird, that is the Jiva, is doing so many things. This guy, the verse says Anashnan Anyaha Abhichakashiti, implying Paramatma is not an enjoyer of our activities. Hold on to that thought, because there is a challenge here. Because the same Veda in Katha Upanishad, Yama teaches Nachiketa. Ritam pibantau sukrutasya loke guham pravishtav parame pararde chaya tapau brahmavido vadanti panchagnayo yecha trinachiketaha. Look at the duals there. Ritam pibantau guham pravishtav. So look at those duals. Those are all the dual words there. Okay. Without going into the details of what those two are, I'll just remind you, when we did that session of Katha Upanishad, I gave you a reference of Brihat Samhita. Atma Antaratma iti harireka ekadvidastitaha. Okay, think about that. So these two are the two forms of Paramatma that is being discussed here in this verse. As we discussed last week, the word Atma needs to be brought in context because there are so many meanings of Atma. So here it talks about two forms. There is the Atma and the Antaratma. That Atma is the one that pervades all the bodies. The pancha koshas are there, right? Annamaya, Pranamaya, Manomaya, Vijnanamaya, Anandamaya. In all these fives, there is a permeation of Brahman, because there is no place where Brahman is not there. So even in these five koshas of the body, there is the pervation of this Brahman in his five vyuha forms that has been discussed in the Taittiriya Upanishad, which is also called Atma. Antaratma is the one that is inside the Jiva itself. And here Yama says, whatever you do, mate, Paramatma relishes that. Okay? Pibantau means enjoying. Okay. So Ritam, what does he relish? Ritam means what? There are so many meanings of Rita in Vedic Sanskrit. Rita means Yathartha Jnana, or the truth is Ritam. Okay. And the putting truth into action is called Satyam. So we need to understand what is Ritam, what is Satyam. Ritam means truth. Satyam means bringing into action is called Satyam. Ritam can also mean changeless, nirvikara sthiti, which is quite commonly used in the Rig Veda. The Ritam comes in more than 50-60 times in the Rig Veda. Ritam, known through the Vedas. Vedas are called Ritam. Ritam, known through the Vedas. But here it means the Ananda we get from Yathartha Jnana, the Punya Pala, the fruits of good deeds is the Ritam. And Yama here says, this Atma, Paramatma enjoys this Ananda we get from Yathartha Jnana. Okay. Which is, again, appears to be different from the Mundaka Upanishad saying, Anashna Nanyaha Abhichakashiti. Here, Angirasa is saying, this guy who is inside you, Antaratma, he is just watching, he does not enjoy anything. Okay? So, think about this. Yeah, and Isha Upanishad, Anejad Ekam Manasa Javiho Nainad Devaha Apnuvan Purvamarshat Taddavato Anyan Atyeti Tishtat Asmin Apo Matarishwa Dadati. That is a beautiful, very important verse. Apo there. Apo means karmas. Whatever karmas you do, Matarishwa Dadati. That Matarishwa offers it to the Paramatma. Matarishwa is the messenger of God. There are many great religions of the world that have messengers of God. Okay? And in Isha Upanishad and in so many other Upanishads, this Matarishwa is considered as the messenger of God. And he is also our messenger. Whatever we do, the karmas that we do, Tasmin Apo Matarishwa Dadati, says Isha Upanishad. Similar from Rig Veda, Matarishwa Jagama. Matarishwa offers whatever things that you do. What is it? Sukrutasya Loke. Using your sadhana sharira, if you do good deeds, that is offered by Matarishwa to this Brahman, and the Brahman takes his Ritam Pibanto. Okay? So there seems to be some internal inconsistencies in the Vedas. That is just the view. But that is not the view. We will get the answer very quickly and how to read this rather than getting confused. So is Paramatma the enjoyer of all our activities? Previously we said Paramatma is not an enjoyer of our activities. But here it seems to suggest Paramatma is the enjoyer of our activities. Look at Krishna. Bhoktaram yajna tapasam sarvaloka maheshwaram aham hi sarva yajnanam bhokta tadaham bhakti upahrutam ashnami prayatatmataha. Ashnami, I eat, I take. Shrotram chakshushu sparshanam cha rasanam ghranameva cha adhishtaya manashchayam vishayan upasevate. I eat it. So Krishna is saying this. Yama is saying in Rutam Prabhanto, in Mundaka Upanishad says Anashna Nanyaha. How do you understand this? To get the answer to this, we have to go to Brihadaranyaka Upanishad 423, where there is a beautiful verse. Tasmadesha pravivikta aharatara. Okay. That word is very pravivikta aharatara. Okay. So we may go to the temple. Okay. And then of course there is the patram pushpam phalam toyam yome bhaktya prayachati tadaham bhakti upahrutam ashnami prayatatmanaha. If you give me fruits, flowers, and some leaves, I will take it. I will enjoy it, says Krishna. Okay. What is it that he is trying to take? When we go to temple and put some plates with fruits and stuff, and when we do some Satyanarayana puja and do some stuff, what is it that he is taking? Who wants to answer that question? What is it that he is accepting? Is he accepting that fruit and leaf and flower that is there in the plate, or is he accepting something else? Brihadaranyaka Upanishad says that what is that ahara that he takes? Ahara tara. Pravivikta aharatara. So anybody wants to say, what is it that God accepts when we do pujas, when we do naivedya, when we do whatever it is? What is it that he accepts? Who wants to take that question?
Is he accepting our bhakti?
Thank you, Sushrut. Very nice. Suresh?
Yeah, something similar. I mean, our intention and our anusandana or the way we do it. It's not the act. It's the intent of the act, perhaps, which is either shreyas or preyas, and depending on that, he accepts the good things that will benefit us. It means our positive balance increases. He rejects it, means that our positive balance decreases or negative balance increases, something of that sort.
Thank you, Sushrut and Suresh. Very, very, very interesting and very beautiful ideas there. Yeah. Srimad Acharya and Brahma Sutra Bhasha, he says, Shubham pibantav vaso nityam na shubham saharir pibet. To answer and square that circle. And as Sureshji and Sushruji mentioned, it is that bhava, that bhakti, that intention with which, that is what he accepts, not your damn fruit that you bought from Asda or somewhere, or the flower that you bought from somewhere, or the leaf that you bought from somewhere. That is not what he accepts. He accepts the intention, the bhakti, the dedication, that surrender, what is the anusandana of surrender. You are so big, I am nobody. That anusandana he accepts. Okay, that is what is important there. Then the drama of doing so many other rituals that we do, and that is what is the way in which this verse is progressing. Okay. So when we say Tayor Anyaha Pippalam Swadati, it is this Jiva who is called Bhokta. And what is he, Bhokta, what is he enjoying? The Bhogyam. What are the Bhogyam? The articles that we enjoy, which is all these fruits. And then there is this guy called the Prerita, who is the independent controller, who is enabling all this to happen in this world. Okay. So this particular verse, Dvasuparna Sayuja Sakaya Samana Vriksham Parishashva Jate Tayor Anyaha Pippalam Swadatti Anashnan Anyaha Avichakashiti establishes the fundamental difference that exists between Jiva and Brahman. Paramatmano Atyanta Binnasya Swataha Chidananda Atmakasyapi Jivasya Anadi Avidya Kama Karmadi Nimittaha, as Jayatirtha has said. That is the foundation. We are nobody. That guy is very high. That is the foundation, the establishing of the difference between who is the Jiva and who is the Paramatma. Shvetashvatara Upanishad captures this very, very beautifully in the 9th verse. Nya Agnyau Dvau. Look at that. Dvau. Agnyau. Nya Agnyau. Do well. Dvau. Do well. So watch those words in the Upanishads. We cannot conveniently forget them. Yeah, we have to use all this. For doing the Shastra Samanvaya, which we will discuss in the subsequent sessions, we need to put the Tatparya Lingas, the Upajivya, Upajivaka Pramana, the Savakasha, Niravakasha, Shruti, and then try and understand it rather than reading our head into the Vedas. Yeah. Dvau Suparnau, Nya Agnyau Dvau. Shara Atmanau Ishate Deva Ekaha. Very, very clear. So there is the Agnya, which is the Jada. There is the Jna, which is the Chetana, which is the Jiva. This is Kshara. This is Atma. Kshara Atmanau Ishate. That which controls is the Deva. And he is Eka. Ekameva Karoti Ekaha. He is the one who does everything. Okay. So Shvetashvatara Upanishad, all the Upanishads for that matter, they always talk about the difference, okay, between the Bhogyam, the Bhokta, and the Prerita. Bhogyam is this material universe that we enjoy. Bhokta is the Jiva who, because of his ignorance, he is enjoying. And the one that allows this game to play on is the Prerita. Okay. That takes us to the whole philosophy of Prapancha. So who is going to remind us what is the meaning of Prapancha in the practical, in the Vedic philosophy? Not this world. That is saying this world is Prapancha is very, very superficial. The word Prapancha has got deep philosophical meaning, and who is going to remind us about that? Shushrut.
The Prapancha. The Prapancha is the fivefold difference between the three entities. So, difference between Brahman and Jiva, Brahman and Jada, Jiva and Jada, Jiva and Jiva, and Jada and Jada.
Beautiful. Thank you very much. Suresh, do you want to add anything, or you concur with what Sushruta has said so far?
No, same thing, Panchabheda.
Yes, thank you very much. Panchavido Vedaha Prapanchaha. So these are all foundational ideas of Vedic philosophy. Prapancha means not this Panchabhuta. That is fine, but that is very superficial. But the core thing is the Dvasuparana Sauja Sakaya is the philosophy that is being discussed there. Okay, so here is another beautiful verse. We probably have 15-20 minutes to try and look at this verse. This is another, amazing verse. So our Angirasa says, yes, these two birds are there in this tree, which is the Pindanda. There is one fellow here enjoying this fruits. The other fellow is just watching Abhichakashiti, because this fellow is eating this Pippala. If this fellow had turned towards him and said, oh, Paramatma, you are the greatest. I worship you. Please give me salvation. He would have accepted that. But because this fellow is facing this Pippala, he is not accepting that. Because as it is said, Shubham pibanta vasau nityam na ashubham saharihi pibe. This Hari only accept if you turn towards him and actually surrender to him. If you surrender to this nature and then start eating and think that you are the center of everything, then he is not interested. He is just sitting there and watching. You do your stuff, mate. I'll just be here. Make a note of all the nasty things that you're doing. Samane prikshe purusho nimagnaha anishaya shochati muhyamanaha jushtam yada pashyati anyamisham asya mahimanam iti vita shokaha. This is the root for our salvation, and Angirasa has intuited in such a beautiful way. Samane vrikshe purusho nimagnaha. That is you and me in this satsang, whether we like it or not. Samane vrikshe. We are so these two birds are in the tree. But there is this fellow who is eating the pippala fruit, that Purusha, he is nimagnaha. That word itself is very beautiful. Nimagnaha. Nimagnaha means he is drowned. He is submerged. There is no way in which he can come out of it. Purushaha nimagnaha. Yeah, nimagnaha means going down it's like a whirlpool. Yeah, look at Krishna saying, Ashraddha danaha purushaha dharmasyasya parantapa. Aprapyamam nivartante mrityu samsara vartmani. Nivartante. Nitaram vartante is nivartante there. The etymology of nivartante. He could have just said vartante. No, Veda Vyasa put ni before that. Nivartante. Nitaram vartante. Where? Mrityu samsara. So this samsara is like a whirlpool. You get inside it, it pulls you down and you're going round and round in circles. And you just can't come out of it. This whirlpool of karma, samsara, pulls you down. Nimagnaha, that is what Angirasa uses here. Vedavyasa in Gita uses nivartante. Okay? The same Mundaka Upanishad, it says, this guy will save you. Amrutasya yesha setuhu. Remember that verse. You are drowned in this samsara, which is the ocean. You're drowned. The only fellow who can kind of rescue you is this Paramatma. He is the bridge and he is also the destination. Remember that verse that we did. Look at Isha Upanishad. We have done this before, right? Yuyodi asmat juhuro namena. Akne naya supata raye asman vishwani deva vayunani vidwan. Yuyodi asmat juhuranam yenaha bhuishtam te namo uktim videma. Yuyodi asmat juhuranam enaha. Juhuranam means pull us down to samsara. This is like some fellow is being put into the ocean and his leg is being tied to a stone and he's just being pulled down. He just can't get out of it. Those are all the ideas. And again, the reason putting this is so that we can do this comparative way of looking at what are all the scriptures saying. They're saying the same damn thing. What is that? You and me as jivas, we are nimagnaha. Where? In this pindanda, in this brahmanda, in this samsara. This brahmanda is the samsara and our body is the pindanda. This is the samane vrikshe. Purushaha nimagnaha. Why is he nimagnaha? Why is he fallen down? Why is he stuck down? The reason is given in the next verse. Anishaya shochati muhyamanaha. Anishaya is an interesting verse. Isha means that which controls. Anisha means that which cannot control. We think we are in control of our life. Okay, so this is we have discussed this so many times, but actually we are not. We think we are in control of our lives, and that is the reason. If we are in control of our lives, we will never get sorrow. Think about the simple basic fact. If we are in control of our lives, if we embark and make our own independent destination, if we are in full control of what we are doing, why do we get disease? Why do we suffer? Why do we become poor? Why do we, so many nasty things happen to us and we suffer and we have sorrow and so on? If we are independent, we can ensure that we don't get any of those. But we get it. Okay. So we need to understand this philosophy. Ihahi vivida samsarika dukkha darshanena viraktasya samadamadi mataha mumukshoho adhikarinaha, as Jayatirtha has said. We have to look at this samsara and you have to witness and see it and understand why on earth there is this suffering. Because we have to realize we are anishaya. This fellow is not able to control his destination. He gets indigestion, right? He eats his pipala food, he gets tummy ache. He eats this, he gets suffering. He is not satisfied with what he's eating. He wants more and more. Because of that, he's suffering. Because he is anisha. Okay, that is, this jiva is anisha. That is one of the reasons why he is suffering. Here is another beautiful way of looking at Anish. Some folks have Anish as names. Why is Anish as a name? Anish means is the name of Vishnu also, because Isha means controller. Anish means there is no controller for him, because he is the supreme controller. He is the independent being, that there is nobody higher to him that can control him. That is also a meaning of Anish, Anishaya. And that is to say, this Antaryaman is an independent entity. We are dependent entity. This independent entity has allowed this jiva to play out this karma and suffer, so that, as we have discussed, this is an examination for the jivas. And at some point, it will say, okay, I need to do well. I need to pass this examination and I have to get distinction and I have to graduate myself to moksha. That is what the jivas have to do. So there, Anisha also means the independent entity. And again, our Jayatirtha has given the definition of that, isn't it? Swarupa Pramitir Pravritir Lakshana Satta Traividye Para Anapeksham Swatantram Tad Apeksham Aswatantram. And the same, our Acharya has said, Swatantro Bhagavan Vishnuhu. The Vishnu alone is an independent entity. He is also called Anisha, and he is the one that allows the jiva to play out, and this jiva is playing out because the jiva is anisha. It is helpless. It is not under control of anybody. It is not able to control its destiny because it hasn't understood that there is an antaryamin who is the controller. That is the problem. He thinks he is independent, but he is not able to solve his problem. So what happens? Shochati. He is struggling and suffering. He is struggling not only because he's Anishaya, but he's got Mukhyamanaha. He is deluded, saying that he is the center of this universe. He is the most important person. The properties and everything that he has made is the center of the universe. Everybody should praise him as what a great intellectual he is, what a great rich person he is, and so on. This thing is, this one is so deluded. We have said avidyayam antare vartamanaha swayandiraha panditam manyamanaha janganyamanaha pariyanti moodaha andenaiva niyamayata. Andaha is what Katha Upanishad has said, and also Mundaka Upanishad has said in the previous verse, because we are mukhya manaha, moha manaha. Moha, viparita jnana, delusion, knowledge, wrong knowledges. Viparita jnana is all around us. We think we are very knowledgeable, but it's full of mukhyamana. Anishaya and mukhyamana is the reason why we are shochati, struggling and suffering. And that is what Angirasa is saying. This bird is suffering, eating. These people are not satisfied because it is facing externally. It is not facing this guy. The approach to its life, the way it is approaching its journey itself is wrong. That is why it is suffering and struggling. Okay. In the next two verses, Angirasa actually gives a solution to this. What is the solution to this problem? How does the jiva get out of this situation? So who wants to kind of think about what is that Angirasa is thinking about in this conversation? What is the solution for the jiva if it wants to get out of this quagmire? Who wants to share their ideas here? It is stuck here as Anisha and Mukhyamana. No problem. So what is the solution? Immediately Angirasa says, Jushtam yada pashyati anyamisham asya mahimanam iti vita shokaha. Jushtam, this jiva, yada pashyati. Okay, this jiva, when it knows proper aparoksha jnana, proper paroksha jnana leading to aparoksha jnana. Yeah, pashyati. Pashyati means to get knowledge. What knowledge? You can start off with paroksha jnana and go to aparoksha jnana. Again, Mundaka has told us endlessly about the dhanur gritva, pranavo, dhanuhu, and all that we have done. Okay, so jushtam yada pashyati. So this is beauty here. We have done this bimba pratibimba bhava, right? The bimba is the object. Pratibimba is a reflection. The bimba pratibimba bhava that is discussed in the Rig Veda and the Gita is the foundational of what is that relationship between these two birds, Dva Suparna. Okay, this is one bird, this is another bird. Okay, this bird is Paramatma, bimba, and his reflection or the reflection in this analogy or the metaphor is the pratibimba, is the jiva. Okay, there are two different entities. Even in physics, object and reflection are not the same. There are two different entities. We have to get the basics right. There are two different entities. Okay. The relationship of Binda Pratibimba Bhava is talking about the dependence and the independence philosophy. That is what is being discussed in Bimba Pratibimba Bhava. Not to say that if the mirror destroys, the image is lost, so you become the object alone. They can't kid people who know the philosophy properly. The philosophy there is bimba pratibimba, that is dependence and independence. When the object moves, the image moves. So when the independent entity does something, then only the dependent entity can do something. Okay, so that is the independent being. This is the dependent being. That is exactly what this verse is talking about. Okay, so pratibimba. So usually what is happening in this context here, this bird in the previous verse, this bird is seeing this bird. This fellow is looking at the material world. Okay, whereas what our Angirasa is saying, this bird should turn around and start looking at the Paramatma. Okay, what that means is when the pratibimba starts seeing the bimba. This is the beauty of this philosophy. Usually the bimba sees the pratibimba. As an object, I see the reflection. Okay, but here it is saying the reflection should start seeing the object. That is the aparoksha jnana philosophy. It's a very esoteric way of looking at it with this illustration. So the pratibimba has to see the bimba. That is the aparoksha jnana, where this pratibimba, this jiva, has to turn inwards. And with this, with the Paramatma's grace, at some point he will be able to see this Paramatma. That is the aparoksha jnana. But currently what we are seeing, the bimba sees the pratibimba because this pratibimba is facing towards the material world. So this fellow is just shaking his head and saying, what is this fellow doing? Okay. So pratibimba sees bimba as what? And what spirit has the pratibimba or the jiva has to see this antaryamin? Again, look at those words. There is no way in which you can run away from it. Okay, anyam isham. Jushtam yada pashyati anyam isham. When this jiva sees its antaryamin, the other bird, as what? Anyam. Anyam means other. Absolute difference. The jiva first has to see this antaryamin is different from him. And as what? He is my Isha. Anyam Isham. He is my master. He is my controller. He is my Swami. That is what this jiva has to realize. Rather than thinking he is the master, he is the controller, he has to realize that there is this antaryamin who is my real controller. That is the start of the karma yoga. If we don't understand that, we can't make progress in karma yoga. This is the core philosophy of the Vedas. Yeah. Jushtam yada pashyati anyam isham asya mahimanam. His greatness. What is his greatness? It's not enough to say that, oh, there is this antaryamin who is different from me. That itself is not enough. Yes, that is the starting point. But we need to understand the greatness of the other antaryamin who is inside us. And that is what Angirasa has been hitting at us for so many verses. He has used the word akshara. He has used the word nityam, sadasadvarenyam, vibhum, param vijnanat, yad varishtam prajananam, sarvagatam, brahma, susukshmam, virajam, avyayam, nishkalam. And I've just picked up some of the verses before. Hiranmayena patrena, hiranmaye pare kosham, virajam, brahma, nishkalam. Tatshubram jyotisham jyotihi tadyat atmavido viduhu. Yes sarvagnaha sarvavid yasya mahima bhuvi divye brahmapurehi vyomni atma pratishtitaha tadetat aksharam brahma sapranaha saduvangmanaha tadetat satyam tadamrutam tadvedavyam somya viddi divyo hi amurtaha purushaha sabbahyabhya antaro hi ajaha aprano hi manaha shubro hi aksharat parataha paraha. Yes sarvagnaha sarvaved yasya jnanamayam tapaha tasmad etad brahma nama rupam annam cha jayat. So these are all the things that Angirasa has reminded Shuanaka, who is a jiva, right? To say, look, this is how you have to understand this fellow. He is anyam, he is your controller, he is akshara, he is nitya, etc., etc. Asya Mahimanam. Asya, there is this universe. Mahimana, Mahamanam. He is beyond this material universe. Understand? That is how you understand. Asya Mahimanam. Iti Vita Shokaha. Only when you reach that point, then you get rid of suffering. Then only you get rid of suffering. Okay. So now the question Angirasa will say in our next satsang is, when does that happen in the journey of souls? And then we will start off with paroksha jnana, aparoksha jnana, and again you look at the dhanur grihitva and say, yada pashyaha pashyate rukmavaranam kartaramisham purusham brahmayonim tada vidwan punya papena viduya niranjanaha paramam samyam upeti, he says in the very next verse, giving us a solution as to we have to have the paroksha jnana, we have to aparoksha jnana, then our karmic imprints are gone, then we have our salvation. So the rest of this khanda actually talks about the journey as to how this bird has to eventually fly away from that bird, from the tree and fly high. and reach its master. That is what this bird needs to do, rather than stuck in this tree and running from branch to branch and eating these fruits, which is what our 15th chapter has told us very nicely, isn't it? In the 2.5 verses, 15th chapter of Gita has given us that illustration as to what's happening to this bird. But eventually it has to fly away from this tree. Okay, and that is the journey that Angirasa illustrates with beautiful examples of the two birds. Okay. So we will stop at that point, and next week we can take up the Jushtam Yada Pashyati Anyamishamasya Mahimanam, and then we will understand this is what I want to deal with. But there are Veda Shrutis and apparently Abeda Shrutis. Aham Brahmasmi, Yova So Purushaha So Ahamasmi, Tattvamasi, Sarvam Kalvidum Brahma, Prajnanam Brahma, Sadeva Somi Idamagrasi Dekameva Advitiyam. How do we resolve this? And then you have the Veda Shrutis, Dvasuparana, Prutak Bhavam, Nityo Nityanam, Yajna Yajna. There are so many more of Veda Shrutis. How do we bring them? How do you reconcile this? There is a formula for this to reconcile and understand this properly, rather than jumping into airy-fairy philosophy and then assuming I am this bird, that I am the Paramatma bird. That is not what the philosophy is. There is a way to understand the Vedic philosophy. Unfortunately, folks do not have access to that kind of a polemic material, and they just run with some airy-fairy philosophy that is being provided to them. But as folks who have sadhana sharira, we should be able to use our intellect, our reasoning, and how we do in our professional lives of using evidence and so on to understand something. We have to use a similar kind of stuff to understand the Vedic scripture rather than jumping to the conversation. So that is what we will be doing next week. Take this verse and also understand what are the other verses and how to reconcile the Shrutis. Okay, so on that note, Krishna Pranamastu. If there are any questions, we'll discuss this today. Right, so looks like we have no questions. So in that case, can I call upon Sushruji to recite Om for us today, and we close today's session. Krishna?
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you want to recite Om and close today's session?
Okay. Oh.
Excellent. Thank you, everyone, and look forward to seeing you next week. And can I also make one last one? I just want to share some information before we close today's session. Every year, if you may recall, every year around Christmas time, we do a dana. Yeah, we do a charity. And as you know, for us, we have adopted Food for Life charity in Hungary, run by Budapest. Our friend Mohanadasa Prabhu coordinates that. And every year, for the past several years, we've donated for their Food for Life, so that they can offer Krishna's prasadam to the needy and the poor people. When there are poor people everywhere, including in Hungary. So I hope that you will be able to make some generous donation. I'll send some materials and information in our Sahiti group as before, and let's see what Krishna allows us to do this year. Okay. So on that note, Hare Krishna. Take care, everyone.
Thank you.
Take care of your
Hare Krishna.